For many years, the Dark Hado Master has been one of the most popular Street Fighter characters in the gaming community. Although he has high levels of popularity, Akuma has dark secrets most of the Street Fighter fanbase has yet to know of. This episode will reveal Akuma's origins, strength, relationship with Ryu, and his feud with his brother Gouken. This and more coming up next. Welcome to the Street Fighterverse. The most destructive character in the Street Fighter universe first made his debut on Super Street Fighter II Turbo, Hyperfighting, on December 1992. Akuma's legacy started there, but its character creation was not brought without thought and planning. Akuma's character was sketched and redesigned multiple times by the Japanese-based video game company Capcom, in which the Street Fighter franchise is in. The Capcom team of graphic designers wanted to make sure to have the perfect character to be in the vessel of the Dark Hado. Since not having much success with its drawings, the Street Fighter Capcom found inspiration on the ends of Buddhism. Akuma's design was based on the Nio, or the Gongore-gishi, two wrathful statues that guard under a separate temple at the entrance of Japanese Buddhist temples. Each of the statues states a purpose, thus having a meaning in their creation. The right statue that guards the gate of the Buddhist temple is called Mishaku Kongo. It is a symbol of overt violence, with its open mouth and baring teeth, holding a mallet ready to protect with ferocity the entrance to the temple. The left statue that guards the temple is called Narian Kongo. This statue symbolizes strength. It can wield a sword, or it can be barehanded. One of its characteristics is that the statue has its mouth closed, demonstrating serenity and power. The new statue's fierce and threatening look was designed to ward off evil spirits and to keep the temple grounds free of demons and thieves. The irony of the Capcom creators. But nevertheless, we can appreciate the origins of the art and structure of the Street Fighter's ultimate fighter. Akuma's fierce looks are just as mean as the arsenal of fighting moves he has in his book. But there is no technique feared by the Street Fighter community, other than his legendary Shungokusatsu, also known as the Wrath of the Raging Demon. The Wrath of the Raging Demon is a very powerful technique, taught in the assassinations arts, with any martial art developed with the intention of destroying an opponent. This type of technique was taught by Akuma's trainer, Gotetsu. This technique, when performed, while wielding the Dark Hado power, will be submerged in its killing intent, giving its opponent a series of deadly strikes in an instant. Fighters that had used this technique gave in to the powers of the Dark Hado, and eventually became consumed by its power, becoming a violent demonic being. Like, for example, Oni, Akuma's evolution form when he becomes one of the Dark Hado. The only character who could resist this technique without giving in was Akuma's trainer Gotetsu. The interesting aspect of the Wrath of a Raging Demon is that its technique is based on karmic forces obtained from the Dark Hado. Its technique punishes its opponent on the merits of the sins and evil the opponent has marked in his soul. In other words, the damage applied when the Wrath of the Raging Demon is applied is not determined by the strength of Akuma's power. It's determined by the opponent's evilness, hurting its opponent as much as he or she deserves. While being powerful, this technique can only be executed on living life forms that possess a soul. The Wrath of the Raging Demon, when executed, lights up Akuma's back with a red fiery kanji symbol. This symbol on Akuma's back has been the character's trademark design, one who fits full to its persona. But what is the meaning of this symbol? What does it state? The symbol located on Akuma's back is the Japanese kanji called ten, that can also be translated as heaven. This kanji, like in most Japanese writings, can mean plenty of things. It can be translated as day, heaven, or invincibility. The kanji on his back is made to reflect immortality at the rate of power, meaning that when the character 10 appears on its back, it's representing immortality. In old Japanese folklore, whenever the kanji with the character 10 appears on someone's forehead, it means the person is immortal. Thus Capcom, taking the idea of modifying it to fit the symbol on the back of Akuma's guy. Pretty interesting fact, considering that Akuma's style and behavior exceeds the capability of other characters in the Street Fighter universe. Akuma's style of technique is indeed a 10. As promised in the beginning of our video, we have a bonus dark secret about Akuma in the Street Fighter universe. You may wonder how someone with amazing ability and strength gets its energy from. The fact is that Akuma is a great martial artist. He is also indeed a human and needs to feed himself from time to time. But what does a character like Akuma eat? In this prequel film, made by a Capcom-approved fan called Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, we can delve inside Akuma's training regimen when he is exiled from his trainer's dojo. We can see in this short how Akuma uses his Hadouken technique to fish by the lake. By hurling Hadoukens to the lake, he can pick up the unconscious fish that floats on the top, making it an easy meal for Akuma. Hadouken's fishing at its finest. Now, thinking about all the power Akuma expels out of his body, I personally think a couple of fish would not replenish his power and stamina. But at least the guy eats healthy. Maybe that's why he does not need that much food to begin with. But indeed, it's a peculiar fact that makes the character more relatable to his human side. After all, even though he is a strong individual, he is still human. Akuma's character in the Street Fighter universe will always be one of intrigue and mystery, a powerful godlike being in which his only objective is to be the strongest in the world, achieve superhuman strength, power and status, and to rain terror on any challenger that opposes him. Akuma's legacy to push the boundaries of inner power and display it in the battle arena is what makes this character so amazing. Personally, and to most of the viewers, its favorite character in the Street Fighter saga. The Dark Hado Master himself has secrets in his name that fills the very existence of its personality. We have shown the other side of the mysterious character from the Street Fighter verse. In this video, we have learned some of Akuma's most notorious dark secrets, from its character design origins to the power of the wrath of the raging demon, and how it can be lethal with its murder intent. We have described the meaning behind Akuma's red fiery kanji symbol on the back of his guy, and even found out how he managed to feed himself by using the Hadouken fishing technique. Let us analyze Akuma's backstories, where he may have been seen as one evil person. One of the most popular stories in his encounter with his former master, Gotetsu, in which he died by the hands of Akuma. Gotetsu was the martial arts master of Gouken and his brother Akuma, and was also a user of the Satsui no Hado, being the only known person who could use the power without falling into its darker aspects, possibly because he only used it sparingly and wisely. This is also how its two students were introduced to its power. The Satsui no Hado, being the surge of the murderous intent, sometimes translated as the Dark Hado, is a dark energy-based force. Prior to the events shown in the Street Fighter games, Gotetsu was challenged and killed by Akuma at his full potential, who performed the Shun Goku Satsu on his soul in a fighting to the death. Gotetsu gladly died and accepted to see that his student surpassed him in the art. The prayer beads that Akuma wears originally belonged to Gotetsu. The act alone might have been seen as evil, but as a warrior, Gotetsu accepted the challenge to fight his former student, understanding the consequences. Another instance of how might Akuma been seen as evil was with the battle between him and his older brother Gouken. Gouken is master of Ryu and Ken. After Gouken began to train Ryu and Ken, Akuma made a sudden appearance at Gouken's dojo. There, Akuma challenged Gouken to a fight. Akuma was soundly defeated by his brother, But Gouken spared his life even after Akuma's insistence that Gouken should kill him. After Akuma's arrival and departure, Gouken continued with Ryu and Ken's training. As time passed, Ryu and Ken had graduated from Gouken's training, leaving the dojo ready to further continue their training and studies. Afterwards, Akuma reappeared at Gouken's dojo and challenged his brother to a rematch. This time, Akuma ended up as the victor, supposedly killing him with the Shun Goku Satsu. However, because Gouken used the Monuken, which translated is the power of nothingness, a technique that emptied his soul of emotions, he was merely left in a deep coma. Because he was unconscious for an extended period, Ryu and Ken believed their master to be dead. Ryu, more than Ken, went and sought out vengeance towards Akuma. We can see how Akuma asked for death, accepting the fact that Gouken at that time was stronger than him. Gouken was challenged and accepted the challenge just like Goketsu. Regarding its outcome, Gouken managed to survive his attack, thus Gouken not being killed. Ryu and Ken see Akuma as an evil being for what he did to his master. But it's just part of being a warrior, taking in the wins with the losses. Each fighter lives with a different kind of code and guideline, in which they base their life on. Which brings us to our next point. Akuma lives by a set of ethics and rules as a fighter. Akuma lives by the code of the warrior. The warrior's code is a code of conduct that defines what warriors can and cannot do if they wish to continue to be regarded as warriors. Akuma adheres to the code of warrior, which dictates that the fighter must not seek to harm the weak. Akuma will only battle those he deems strong enough, and he very rarely resorts to using true strength, as this would make for an unfair fight. Akuma abides by the code of the warrior. He fights to improve his skills and defeat powerful foes, though on rare occasion, he does so to gauge the other's abilities. Although he killed his teacher and believed that he did the same with his brother, Gouken, Akuma did so in combat, which as stated before, it does not break the warrior's code guideline. In combat, Akuma almost never resorts to his true strength, especially if testing another fighter. He only fights warriors that he deems worthy, or the one he believes have the potential to become such. During the events of Street Fighter Alpha 2, Akuma fought Ryu only to gain insight on Ryu's abilities, while in Third Strike, he faced Oro in order to test his own strength. Akuma usually prefers an even bout, as he backed out of a duel with Gen once he found that Gen was fatally ill. It's not uncommon for him to deliver a lethal sneak attack to an unprepared opponent, particularly if they are less than honorable. He will only fight if the fighter is up to his level or higher. Even though he is the master of the Satsu no Hado, he still knows when and how to use his power. Very ethical if you ask me. Which brings me to my other point. His Raging Demon attack, the Shun Goku Satsu. The Shun Goku Satsu attack is the most feared attack in Akuma's repertoire. The Raging Demon attack consists in Akuma gathering energies from his Satsu no Hado, and in a matter of seconds, everything turns black as he glides towards its opponent and delivers a barrage of combos, leaving the opponent defeated. The odd thing about Akuma's Raging Demon attack is that the damage it creates, it's not made by Akuma's strength. Rather, this technique, it's based on the evilness of the opponent. According to Street Fighter lore, the Raging Demon is karmic in nature, with the move channeling punishment, based on the weight of the sins that dwell within the soul of the individual being attacked. Another reason you can say that he is evil is that he uses a technique that punishes a person based on the evil thing that person has done. In a way, you can say that he is the opposite of evil. As stated by the definition of evil, which is immoral and wicked, I do not find Akuma neither of those. I find that Akuma is a misunderstood character in the Street Fighter series. That is what makes Akuma one of the most illest characters on the franchise. He is neither evil or good. Akuma is just Street Fighter's ultimate warrior. In order to start answering the question, is Akuma Ryu's father? We first have to dig into his early story. In his early years, Akuma and his brother Gouken were students of a master martial artist named Gotetsu. Gotetsu had trained them under his dojo, teaching him his martial arts skills. These martial arts skills composed elements of judo, genpo, and karate in his training. While under his wing, Gotetsu took care of his niece named Sayaka, which shared the same living quarters as Akuma and Gouken. Sayaka had a timid stance and was a sympathetic human being. She helped with the endeavors of her uncle and his students Gouki and Gouken. She encouraged the brothers to pursue diverse interests and hobbies, like photography and English, as a side of their training. She has even taught them calligraphy in their free time from training. It is noted that Sayaka had particular feelings towards Gouki. In the movie Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, we see a glimpse of the relationship between Gouki and Sayaka. Great, right? This scene shows another side of Gouki, a more loving and compassionate side. Now, a while after the calligraphy class, Gouki leaves abruptly, writing Metsu in his paper. Metsu in translation means destruction, signifying to both Sayaka and Gouken the secrets of the Satsu no Hado, delved into Gouki's core, greatly progressing and consuming his being. During a training fight between Gouken and Gouki that Gouki lost his temper and tried to kill Gouken. Gouken reversed his attacks and was about to kill him with a Hadoken if it hadn't been for Sayaka, who stood in the way, making Gouken cease charging the projectile. Shortly afterwards, while Gouki is being scolded by Gotetsu, Sayaka tries to intervene, but Gouken prevents her. As a result, she goes to Gouki's room to wait for him. After Gouken is called in, Gouki is told by Gotetsu to pack his belongings and leave the dojo. Sayaka attempts to convince him to stay, saying that she will talk to her uncle about changing his mind, but Gouki refuses. He recognizes that Sayaka is attracted to him, but tells her that he must pursue his training in the ways of the Satsu no Hado above all else. He kisses her goodbye. Saddened, she stays in the room after he leaves it, and is soon found by Gouken, who she is angry at for not defending his brother. When Gouki begins leaving the dojo grounds, Sayaka runs to catch up with him, to give him a basket of food for his journey, and a piece of paper with the kanji symbol heaven written upon it, symbolizing his quest for immortal glory. This is the infamous kanji symbol that glows in the back of Akuma after his raging demon attack is unleashed. A year passes and Sayaka longs for Gouki's return, but Gotetsu notices this and tells her to stop her infatuation, as it is hindering Gouken's training. After Gotetsu dies at Akuma's hands, Sayaka finds little reason to stay at the dojo and departs in the night, leaving Gouken and Senzo. She isn't seen again. As time passes by, a small child is left in front of Gouken's dojo. Gouken adopted it and trained the young kid, Ryu. In the Street Fighter Generations, and as stated by fandom, Sayaka is first seen tending to Gouki's wounds after he loses a fight to Gouken. Later on, Sayaka hears Gouki and Gotetsu arguing about the use of the Satsu no Hado. After Gouki leaves the room, Sayaka fails to persuade Gouki to consider Gotetsu's warnings, then begins to worry about him when he appears to be in pain. Due to abusing the Satsu no Hado, Gouki becomes Akuma and fights Gotetsu. Sayaka, being aware of this, turns to Gouken for help. Sayaka is unable to keep up with Gouken, as she is nauseous and then vomits due to it. This is all but stated to be morning sickness, giving a subtle hint that indeed Sayaka was pregnant, in which most likely she was bearing Akuma's child. Could Ryu be Sayaka's son? Well, if we follow the chain of events and tie the life of Sayaka and Gouki before his encounter with the Satsu no Hado, this might tell us that yes, Ryu could be their son. They share many common traces. Sayaka's temperament is very much like Ryu's timid and sympathetic nature. Calligraphy is most present in Ryu's stage signs, and also in part of his clothing. Out of all of the places in the world that a kid could have gone to, he ends up in Gouken's dojo. Due to the Street Fighter Alpha Generations and Street Fighter Assassin's Fist movies, it is believed by some that Akuma is Ryu's father. However, these movies, as well as other Street Fighter movies, are non-canon to the series, which takes away the validity of the process. Despite the fact that some say that it is not canon, we like the idea, since it makes sense that Akuma would be Ryu's father. The Satsu no Hado was not something Ryu actually had to train for. Not that he wanted to, but we believe Ryu was born with the power that lay dormant since he was an infant. His mother, Sayaka, she was in a relationship with Gouki in both the animated adaptation and live-action version of the Street Fighter. After many conflicts, Gouki challenged and killed his master, Gotetsu, leaving Sayaka and Gouken to grieve as he sank into darkness. Over time, Sayaka departs Gouken, while pregnant with evidentially her child, Ryu. We are amazed that Capcom hasn't covered it more. Having no idea who he is, a pure demon trying to get through the power of his son, and the warrior seeking to overcome that power and defeat his father, who killed his master/uncle, who might have been trying to prevent Ryu from learning the truth about his past. It is said that officially, Akuma is Ryu's adoptive uncle. It may be an official saying, but there are so many variants as to why Ryu is Akuma's legitimate son. But then again, if it's in the books that way, I guess we have to go with the creator's decision as to where the real origin of Ryu lies. The official backstory of Akuma reveals that both brothers were students of Gotetsu, a practitioner of the violent arts, whose origins stem from Japan's feudal era. Known as one of the only people capable of using the Satsui no Hado without falling into its deeper aspects, Gotetsu was a master of martial arts of Gouken and Akuma. Gotetsu was skilled in both Anatsuken and Bojutsu, and possessed a secret arsenal of techniques he had kept hidden away from his students. Gouken and Akuma learned from Gotetsu's techniques. Their fighting styles and methods gradually diverged as the two brothers developed different fighting styles. The more Akuma embraced and mastered the killing and dart aspects of the art, the more he succumbed into the Satsui no Hado, or the surge of murderous intent, and wanted to fully utilize it to gain more power and influence. Gouken, in contrast, developed his own style of the art, removing the Satsui no Hado, turning weapons such as the Hadoken and Shoryuken into tools for self-defense, eliminating their killing potential. As a result of succumbing into the Satsui no Hado, Akuma battled and killed Gotetsu for failing to embrace the Satsui no Hado to its full extent. He also left behind his master dojo and brother to train alone for even greater gains. Prior to Gotetsu's death, Gouken found and adopted Ryu, an abandoned orphan. Den Hibiki would later become Gouken's first student. Nevertheless, Gouken discovered from Dan that he wanted to learn this martial art for revenge, and rejected him for his intentions, fearing that his grudges would lead him on a dark path. Later, a young man, Ken Masters, was sent by his father, a good friend of Gouken, to study humility, respect, and discipline. His father, a rich hotel tycoon owner, thought that his son needed to learn about discipline, or his son would become a spoiled brat all of his life, and tried to leech onto the master's family fortune. Akuma appeared at Gouken's dojo. After Gouken had begun to train the boys, Gouken was challenged to a fight by Akuma. While Gouken had soundly defeated Akuma, the brother spared him even after Akuma insisted he should be killed. After Akuma's arrival and departure, Gouken continued to train the two boys. Over the years, Gouken's students grew as individuals, and his two students graduated from his tutelage, becoming proficient enough to leave the dojo and travel the world, to acquire new skills and become better. Afterwards, Akuma reappeared at Gouken's dojo and challenged his brother to a rematch. Akuma emerged victorious with a Shun Gokusatsu, allegedly killing Gouken in the act. Despite this, Gouken was only left in a deep coma due to a similar technique Gen uses, which emptied his soul of emotions. Due to his lengthy period of unconsciousness, Ryu and Ken believed their master had died and buried his body. In Street Fighter IV, when Gouken awakens 2 years later, he leaves his dojo and follows his students, delighted by their achievements. In order to test their strength, he decided to enter the new SIN tournament rather than just watch them. Following Seth's defeat, Gouken successfully finds Ryu and seals the Satsui no Hado, so Ryu never has to suffer with the power again. After Gouken had completed his task, Akuma appeared. Soiled with bitterness, Akuma convinced himself he would no longer be able to fight Ryu. Akuma realizes that the power Gouken used to seal it was the power of nothingness. The power of nothingness is a state of consciousness transcending ordinary perspective, born through spiritual and mental refinement. Bearing common traits with state of being within Buddhism, martial arts, and spiritual perfection, it is the power to act without being attached to emotions and thought, free of fear, anger, pride, and ego, to draw upon the contents of one's heart intuitively without obstacle and hesitation, and to be aware of the world and to know one's place and meaning within its vastness, to flow with all of creation without the need of worry, desire, and doubt. It is the complete opposite of the Satsui no Hado. As such, it can only be used by a person of pure mind, compassion, mercy, and peace. Such a person must have embraced the peaceful and spiritual aspect of the art to their fullest extent. Just like the Satsui no Hado, it makes a person unbelievably powerful, granting invincibility, spiritually and physically, to many attacks, as well as sealing off evil power and making the user a stronger fighter. The brothers then face off in another rematch, with Ryu's fate at stake, and Jin watching the fight in amazement. The exact outcome of the fight is unknown, though it is known that both survive, and that Ryu does not go to Akuma, so it could possibly be implied that Gouken may have won. Ryu and Ken ask Gouken to stay with them a while, but Gouken tells them that they are both grown men and no longer need a master. Gouken and Akuma's rivalry is just based on the principles of how a martial art should or should not be used. Each of their paths represent a symbolic significance to our daily lives. We have two choices to make. Either we as people learn how to manage ourselves in a positive manner, or we have the option to totally be consumed by the dark aspects of what surrounds humanity. Akuma is a brutal and extremely powerful warrior, whose reason for being is to improve his fighting skills by battling and destroying strong adversaries. He rarely displays any signs of emotions or empathy, aside from occasional bursts of anger. He, however, will not engage in battle towards helpless people, and in some cases, may even defend them, either as a righteous calling or an afterthought of conquering a major adversary. Akuma has 3 stages of his power: his normal stance, Shin Akuma, and Oni. We will start with the Shin Akuma version. Akuma's personality remains more or less the same as the original. Essentially, he is Akuma using the fullest extent of his power. However, he is more competitive in battle and less merciful when he is fighting a strong warrior. He will only fight at his true potential when he has found an equal to do battle with. Oni version is the form Akuma takes when he has become one with the Satsui no Hado entirely, completely losing any shred of humanity he had remaining. In Street Fighter IV series, developers had referred to Oni as Akuma beyond Shin Akuma. This version of Akuma possesses longer white hair and darkened blue skin. This demonic transformation allows Akuma to use an air dash and grants him several new attacks, such as a forward slide, which slashes at the opponent as he passes, as well as an overhead ground stomp. Might I add that Akuma's Oni stage divided a moon in half in Asura's Wrath. To understand Akuma's power, we have to reach into his arsenal of techniques that he has mastered over the years. His power and techniques are the center of Akuma's being. We will start with Akuma's Ashura Senku. This technique might not be as flashy as his other techniques, but it is certainly useful against any opponent. Akuma widens his stance, glows into a red color, and lifts one knee and glides along the ground to any direction it wants. While his eyes glowing red, this technique makes him impossible to hit while in its gliding form. This teleport move acts similar to a ghost from its projection move. The teleport can be used to get away from an opponent bearing down on him, to suddenly launch an attack, often from behind, or perhaps to simply psych out the opponent and keep them guessing. Akuma's Kongo Koretsu-san art. Akuma puts his hand up and charges it with energy, violently slamming his fist on the ground. The resulting explosion of pure energy first takes the form of a lightning bolt, and then emanates outwards in a shockwave of energy that rises from the ground as a geyser formation. Provided the entire move of the initial bolt and following aftershocks connect, it can deplete around 60% of the opponent's health. Akuma developed the move over many years and mastered it only by the end of Street Fighter III Second Impact. In Street Fighter Alpha 2, after fighting Ryu on his tiny island, he uses the technique to crush it into pieces. This is Akuma's most important art. The Shun Gokusatsu, the Raging Demon, is a super combo move made famous by Akuma himself. It is one of the most powerful attacks throughout the franchise, its roots coming from the Ansatsuken style of martial art. The Ansatsuken is described as the assassination arts, which consist of any martial art developed with the intention of slaying an opponent. The Raging Demon attack consists in Akuma gathering energy from his Satsui no Hado, and in a matter of seconds, everything turns black as he glides towards its opponent and delivers a barrage of combos, leaving the opponent defeated. The odd thing about Akuma's Raging Demon attack is that the damage it creates is not made by Akuma's strength. Rather, this technique hurts as much as the opponent deserved. It is based on the evilness of the opponent. According to Street Fighter lore, the Raging Demon is karmic in nature, with the move channeling punishment based on the weight of the sins that dwell within the soul of the individual being attacked. The move often appears as Akuma's most powerful super combo, especially at full power. In Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, it appears as his secret super art, and one of 2 secret super arts in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. He can use it in a match no matter what super art had been selected, thus giving him access to more than one super art at any given time. Akuma has non-canon feats that demonstrate the range of his power. In Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Fate of Two Worlds, Akuma appears as one of the 4 characters working alongside Galactus as his heralds, though his motivation is the same as in most appearances. In his ending, he is shown to have defeated Galactus, as well as many others from the other dimension that stood in his path. Seeing how the Planet Eater himself could not defeat him, Akuma decides not to wait for strong opponents to appear, but rather to seek them out. Galactus is a comic entity who originally consumed planets to sustain his life force. Galactus is depicted as a godlike figure who feeds by draining living planets of their energy and operates without regard to the morality and judgments of mortal beings in the Marvel Universe. In the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Akuma was banned in the United States tournaments. This is a result of the fact that Akuma was initially designed to be extremely powerful. Such power is potentially reflected in his lack of a super combo at that point. As a computer-controlled boss in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Akuma is even more powerful, faster, and more durable in comparison, usually only appearing as a final or hidden boss. This reflects his personality, as Akuma often holds back his power, so as to give his opponents a fighting chance. When fought as a secret boss, Akuma effectively deems the player's characters worthy, and powers up accordingly. Akuma is one of these characters that are 1 in a million. His power makes him one of the strongest characters in the Street Fighter franchise. To begin to answer this question, we have to look back to his former younger years. Ryu has been most of the time under the tutelage of his master, Gouken. He has always been learning and finding his way. The fighting style used by Ryu and Akuma is based on the Anatsuken, a martial art rooted as an art of assassination. Akuma, on the other hand, has many years developing his training. Even though he left his master's dojo, he still acquired enough training on his own, returned to his former dojo, and killed his own master. He even took his master's beads as a victory trophy. In the manga Ryu Final Volume 1, we find Akuma saving young Ryu from a bear attack. They both have super amazing speed. Ryu's speed is super fast. If we take in consideration the fact that he can dodge bullets without any effort, it will take superhuman reflexes to dodge a bullet. The fastest bullets travel more than 2,600 feet per second. That is the equivalent to over 1,800 miles per hour. To put that into perspective, it is amazing to realize that bullets travel over twice the speed of sound. Ryu's Tatsumaki Seppunkyaku is calculated to be around 67 miles per hour. On the other hand, Akuma is not a slow opponent. He has the ability to teleport to any direction he wants. Akuma's Ashura Senku has the speed to dodge any attack. This teleport move acts similar to a ghost from its projection move. The teleport can be used to get away from an opponent bearing down on him, to suddenly launch an attack, often from behind, or perhaps to simply psych out the opponent and keep them guessing. In Street Fighter Alpha 2, after fighting Ryu on his tiny island, he uses the Kongo Konguretsu-san art to crush the island into pieces. He advises Ryu to give in to the Satsui no Hado, but at the same time lets him go, telling him, "When you have learned to summon all of your inner power, find me." At that time, Akuma could have just finished him. Instead, he lets Ryu walk off with the encouragement of facing him when he is stronger. It's clear that in this timeline, Ryu was much weaker than Akuma. Ryu has managed to lift up a boulder while carrying Oro on his back. That is an amazing aspect, to have that kind of strength in training. Ryu's Hadouken has the strength to break solid stone and can hurt opponents twice his weight, such as Gil, who weighs around 584 pounds. On the other hand, Akuma's Oni stage has managed to divide a moon in half, and also, he had the opportunity to blow up a giant asteroid that was heading towards Earth. In Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Akuma dives deep sea and manages to destroy a vessel coming out of the sea. Akuma fully emerged in the Satsui no Hado. This is a great advantage for Akuma. This leads Akuma to be one with a surge of murderous intent, which can raise his abilities to new levels, giving in completely without regard to human empathy or compassion. The Satsui no Hado is described as taking the spirit to kill the opponent to the extreme and transforming it into a physical power. Martial arts made towards the purpose to kill, specifically Anatsuken, come to have their repertoires and teachings intertwined, with its power upon their founding, and their techniques ultimately hold the potential to develop the Satsui no Hado due to its originating intention. Evil Ryu also refers to himself as a heartless and nothing more but a demon, and will seek out and murder any opponent in a fight, regardless of their age and condition. He displays a very dangerous bloodlust, even borderline sadism, and ritualistic belligerence that almost borders on cannibalism, as seen in many of his pre-fight and win quotes. If we compare levels, Evil Ryu can be slightly stronger than Shin Akuma, but Oni, which is Shin Akuma's upper form, would be stronger than Evil Ryu. It is said that in the advent of Ryu overcoming the temptations of the Satsui no Hado dwelling within him, it was assumed that the persona of Evil Ryu had been vanquished. Yet astonishingly, the Satsui no Hado would develop sentience and came to manifest as its own entirely separate physical entity, naming itself Kage. In Street Fighter IV, Ryu and Akuma face off. At the beginning, we can see a hurt Ryu getting destroyed by Akuma. Ryu gets up and rages his attack towards Akuma, eventually being interrupted by Ken as the scene comes to an end. We would have loved to see the end of this fight, as it was perfect in build-up, music, and animation. In the Street Fighter V short Mudo Tensho, Akuma manages to face off against Ryu. Akuma defeats Ryu, but before Akuma leaves, Ryu tells Akuma, "My fists asks yours. Only yours can respond. That's how it will always be. Our conversation won't end because the answer lies in the heart of battle." In return, Akuma answers, "Very well, that's true. Our paths will cross again someday. I shall meet you at your journey's end." Could their fate end in a fight to the death? Who knows, but for sure, it will be one great battle. We believe Akuma is stronger, but that is mostly because he uses the Satsui no Hado to reach his heights rarely seen. Ryu has the potential to surpass Akuma if he gives into the Hado. Ryu possesses a strong affinity for the Hado, probably comparable to Akuma when they were starting out. In terms of pure fighting ability, Akuma is on par with his brother Gouken, a fighter on par with Gen, Oro, and Gil. In Street Fighter V, Ryu has made his choice and appears to have chosen the power of nothingness, the exact opposite of Akuma's Hado. However, Ryu almost certainly starts over in that regard as well. Ryu is a passionate fighter, which is why he almost went down that dark path. We have to recognize also that if he manages to learn all of Oro's teachings, Ryu might become the strongest fighter there is. But for now, without a doubt, in our opinion, Akuma is stronger than Ryu. So do you think Ryu is stronger than Akuma? So what did you like about this episode? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on new theories and info. Thank you for watching. This has been your Street Fighter host. Welcome to the center stage. By the way, if you would like to donate or simply get us a coffee, we would like to inform you that sure you can at ko-fi.com/streetfighterverse. We are grateful for every single one of you. You guys make this possible, and for that we thank you. Our new Discord server. There you can talk with us, chat about current events going on in Street Fighter, information, theories, and lore. We'll leave the link in the description box below. We want to thank everyone for tuning in and becoming part of this Street Fighter community. We want to thank you for your positive comments towards our channel because it only habilitates us to grow even more. From the Street Fighterverse crew, we thank you.